Hello my dear friends and welcome to Study IQ. I am Joycey Joy and today in this lecture we will discuss about the coal sector in India. First of all, let us understand what is the current affair. The government has recently given certain details about the coal mining sector to the Rajya Sabha. So, Rajya Sabha being the upper house of the parliament, the government has submitted a report stating the condition or the status of coal mining in India. And in the report, government mentions about government's ambition on phasing out coal in India. So, phasing out coal means discontinuing coal mining in India. But if we compare the report of the government with that of the present status of coal mining in India, we will see that it is not necessary that coal be phased out from the country, but what is required is a policy measure. So, there should be a holistic policy measure which addresses the drawbacks of coal sector in India and come up with better control and better regulation, better monitoring in the coal sector in India. So based on this current affair, let us understand what is the status of coal sector in India, what are the shortcomings and how to address them. Now let us see what are the figures regarding the coal sector in India. 2 years ago, the union government had announced that there is no need to import more coal to India, and it had asked the states as well as the NTPC, different state governments and NTPC, to stop import of coals. So this happened 2 years ago. But even after the announcement of the union government, we will see that there is still coal imports to the country. So the imports of coal to India continues even after the government made an announcement to stop coal imports to the country. And also, more importantly, what we notice is that the coal imports in the current fiscal year, that is 2018-19 fiscal year, in the first 7 months, if we analyze the first 7 months, the coal imports have increased by 15%. So we will see that there is not only the continuance of the imports but also an increase in the imports by 15% in the current fiscal year. So the main states which imports the coal are Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Maharashtra and Gujarat. These four are the important states which imports coal to India, and along with NTPC, and also certain private units in the states of Punjab and also in the state of Madhya Pradesh also imports coals, and altogether the imports of coal amounts to 12.5 million tons. And what is the reason for this increase in the coal imports to India by 15% in the current fiscal year? This is because of the high demand for coal in the Indian market. So, when the demand is high, it has to be met with the supply. And there are two sources of supply. One is domestic sources and second one is external sources or international sources. But in case of coal, we will see that the domestic sources of supply were not sufficient to meet the increasing demand of coal in India. So, the aggregate demand for coal is higher than the aggregate supply in the domestic market. So, what is the solution? In order to bridge the gap between the demand and supply, the Indian economy will depend on external sources, that is on imports. So, since the demand is higher than the supply, the rate of imports increased. Now, if we look at the April to September period in this financial year, we will see that there was a 7.6% increase in the demand. And this increase in demand was the highest in the last 5 years. So, two reasons. One is increase in demand by 7.6%. Second one, fall in domestic supply. So, altogether, demand increased and supply from the domestic sources came down. So, this was the reason imports increased by 15% in the first 7 months of the current fiscal year. And also, it is expected that the power demand is set to rise. So, this will lead to more import of coal into India. Now, let us understand what are the drawbacks in the coal sector. The first one, as we have already discussed, it's a shortage issue. We have seen in Indian economy, the aggregate demand for coal is more than the aggregate supply from domestic sources, and this leads to import of coal. So, this will have an impact on the current account deficit of the country. So, the first major issue is related with the shortage of coal in India, the shortage of domestic production. Now, secondly, The coal sector in India is predominantly occupied by the public sector, that is by the government. Almost 95% of India's coal mining output is by the public sector. And within the public sector itself, the Coal India Limited (CIL) accounts for around 4/5 of India's total production. So, if we take into account the production alone by CIL or the Coal India Limited, it is the world's largest coal producer. So, when a particular sector is within the domain of the public or the government, it will have certain shortcomings. Like for example, the fiscal constraints. So, government has various commitments and investing in such type of public sector undertakings would be difficult for the government. So, there will be fiscal constraints which leads to financial or capital constraints. And second one is the adequate technology availability, the quality of output. So, all this will have an impact or shortcoming when a sector is predominantly under the public sector or the government. And third one is the lack of technology or lack of adequate technology. Indian coal mining is lacking in efficient and safer mining technologies. So it has two implications. One is the safety. The second one is the output quality. And another challenge in the coal sector is regarding the clearances and permissions bottlenecks. So we will understand that almost a year ago the coal sector was privatized. That means it was opened up to the private players. So it's been almost 1 year the coal sector has been opened up to the private players. But even then we will see that there are various bottlenecks or shortcomings like the clearance issues, the permission issues. So this will delay the investment of private sector in the coal sector. So if private sector can effectively make an investment in the coal sector, this can address the issue of lack of technology because they can make investment in technology. Lack of adequate capital. The private sector can make adequate capital investments. So such type of shortcomings can be addressed if private sector plays an active role here. But even though the sector is opened up to the private players, there are various challenges in the procedures to open up production in the private sector. Now let us understand what is the need for coal sector in India. First of all, we must understand that even if the government is giving a boost to the renewable energy sector like the solar energy, wind energy, etc., considering the carbon footprint, coal-based thermal power also will continue to play a component role in the energy portfolio of the country. So we cannot altogether do away with the coal-based thermal power sector. So what has to be done or what is the need of the hour? First of all, we need an improved coal mining and processing technology. So an improved coal mining facility in terms of technology is very important for many reasons. First one is the environmental factors to reduce the carbon footprint. Second reason is the safety factor. Third one is the output factor. The quality of the output should be good. So, considering these three important reasons, there should be improved technology in the coal mining of the country. Now, second one is the capital intensity in this sector. Here also there is an increased role for the private sector because they can make better capital investments. So, capital intensity is also very important. And third one is improved regulation, monitoring and enforcement. So this requires a better policy framework or a policy environment. So this is the role of the government to come up with enabling policies. So what needs to be done lies in investing in the coal sector in India. If we consider the global examples, the coal sector in different countries is very much capital intensive. This will make the coal sector more technology friendly, more safe, and the quality of the coal output also improves. So considering all these factors, there needs to be more capital investment in this sector. And this can be effectively done by the private sector in India. Now, second important consideration should be the safety of the coal miners. This should go in hand with the environmental factors as well. Now, thirdly, the role of the private sector should also increase. We have seen that a majority of the coal sector in India is held by the Coal India Limited. So, it should be diverted into the private sector as well. If we take the single example of Coal India Limited, a possibility is to divide this entity into smaller fragments and then privatize it. This is a possibility. So, privatization will lead to better competition, better investment and better efficiency. So, altogether this will lead to better safety, better output and better quality. So, this can address the issues in this sector. You can find the PDF of this lecture on my Facebook page, and for any queries regarding your UPSC preparations, you can get in touch with me on my Facebook page or you can email me at joyce.studyiq@gmail.com. Thank you.